next topic is variables. Consider the following. In the shell, width equals 10. Notice that there's not an answer given here. This was an assignment statement. The equal sign here is unfortunately the symbol used in mathematics for equality, which is not really accurate. In this case, the value of 10 is assigned, moved to the left here, to width, which means the name width is associated with the value 10. So now, if I type width, it gives me the value 10. It knows that 10, the width evaluates to the value 10. And I can do something like height is equal to width plus 5. And again, we have an assignment statement where we evaluate the right-hand side. Width is 10, add 5, we get 15, and assign it to the left. And again, it doesn't say anything, but if I check the value of height, it should be 15. We can also use variables in expressions like height times width. And of course, that's going to be 15 times 10, or 150. The use of the equal sign here is very unfortunate. It reminds you of mathematical equality. If there was an arrow pointing to the left on the keyboard when Python was invented, it would certainly have been used instead of the equal sign. But we're stuck with the equal sign now. So, for instance, if you write 10 equals width, which is completely mathematically equivalent to the equation, if we think of it up there, we get a problem. Because this is not symmetrical, it goes right to left. Width has a value, what at this time happens to be 10, but we cannot assign a value to a literal. Lateral just is its own value. And so this makes no sense. Similarly, we can do something like this. Whoops. Width equals width plus 20. This would make no sense in math. But this isn't math. It's Python. This is an assignment, not an equation. And it works the same way as we've said. Width presently has a value of 10. We add 20. We get 30. And this value then comes across and is assigned to width. That means it changes the value of width. Again, it's an assignment, so it doesn't give us anything back. But now, if I type width, the value of width has changed to 30. This changing of the value of a variable is, in fact, a very useful process, and we will use it over and over. So the idea of this not being a mathematical equation and this assignment evaluating the right and then associating the value with the variable on the left, or the identifier on the left, is important. Now this same thing works with other types. All right, suppose I say first equals Sue, the string, last equals Wong, and then we can say the whole name is the first name. We probably should, but we need to put a blank in the middle, so I'll put a blank plus last. So then, of course, name is Sue Wong. There's a particular issue with strings. What if I now say I want to change the value of first? I want to make it be Fred. Think about that. I'll hit return. There's an error. Here, Sue was in quotes, but Fred is not. And so something that looks like a word but that's not in quotes, is interpreted as an identifier, and it looks for what value is Fred associated with. And Fred hasn't been defined yet, and hence we get the error. Name Fred is not defined. If I then do something like saying, okay, so let's let Fred be equal to the string Frederick, then there's no problem with saying first, whoops, if I can spell it, equals Fred without quotes, because now it is an identifier associated with Frederick, and so first has become Frederick. It's very easy to forget quotes when you mean them, when you want to deal with an explicit string, and to include them when you really mean a variable. Be careful, you may get errors like this. Be on the lookout. By the way, there is a handy thing we can do with long names. Here I've just typed F. You can't see this, but I'm holding down the Alt key and pressing the slash key underneath the question mark. And what it does is it auto-completes. It looks for an identifier that it already knows and sees about finishing. And if first isn't the right one, you can keep hitting the slash while holding the Alt and look at other things. Oh, then we eventually go back to reserved words that we haven't used recently, and we come, rotate around eventually. This is very handy, particularly if you use a long, meaningful identifier that you get tired of typing.